Well, of course, it's a kind of walk down memory lane every time this time of year comes around. I was 13 years old at the time, and I remember the general election result that evening. I was on the carpet in my parents' house listening to the radio as the results came in. And it was just startling to us because the next day was school, and there's a white-black divide in the country, and of course the white students were quite uncomfortable about the result, and so there was a lot of teasing going on, but it was just a remarkable result. And I think that what's interesting about the way the country's developed today is that sort of memory about the racial divide um, doesn't really feature much in the politics, although in the politics today, uh, one side is still largely with those who are opposed to us. But it was a kind of magical moment, and it changed things a lot psychologically. And I was, as I was driving through, I guess that was Sears Road a couple of days ago, I remembered as a child you couldn't walk through there as a black young man. You were with trepidation walking through that area because it wasn't an area that you're supposed to be in. And all of that changed. And when you look at the cabinet that existed, um, phenotypically white became phenotypically black. That changed. And yet the new government took the position that this was a change for everybody because even poor whites at the time suffered from the discrimination of a ruling class that was fairly brutal in the way they applied their politics and applied their politics to the economy as well. So what is really interesting is trying to explain to younger Bahamians what that was really like and the struggle that actually meant in order to get to where we are today. So the other day I was leafing through because I was trying to find one of the lawyers at Higgs and Johnson, and in this country, there's we used to say as lawyers that they're white firms, right? So they were Higgs and Johnson, McKinney, Bancroft and Hughes, Graham Thompson. So that's still the kind of cultural mindset that I have about this. Now, Campbell Clare, for example, whose grandfather, when he told one of the UBP fellows that he was going to vote for Gerald Cash, was told to move out of his place overnight. And Campbell Clare remembers as a child joining his grandfather, moving the bicycle shop because his grandfather had said that I'm not voting for the Bay Street Boys. But today, Campbell Clare is a consultant, and his two daughters are partners in McKinney, Bancroft and Hughes. And when I looked in, I was trying to find this lawyer in Higgs and Johnson. I was just astounded. I mean, it is, Oscar Johnson, his father was elected to the House for Cat Island as the Member of Parliament for the PLP in 1967. And today his son is the managing partner of Higgs and Johnson. It's the emotions that I really just remember. But what became the thing is, I knew all the people because Arthur Hanna, Pindling, Pindling used to get his hair cut. Nat Benaby's father was a barber, was a bishop of the Church of God, and Nat's father used to be Pindling's barber. Arthur Hanna and many of the other men used to go to a place where Mr. Cox and Scavella, I think it was called the Kingsman Barbershop on Wolf Road, and this is where I learned that Salathiel Thompson was going to become the Commissioner of Police. That all changed. It's just a walk down memory lane. Of course, Arthur Hanna, who grew up in my grandmother's house when he came from Acklands, because we are like third cousins or something like this. Our great grandfathers were relatives. This was our era. Dame Albertha Isaacs, who's my grand aunt, my grandfather's my great-grandfather's daughter and my grandmother's sister, and her sister Nora were leaders in the women's movement of the PLP. And Beryl Hanna, who was Arthur Hanna's wife, says that shortly after she came to Nassau, she remembers this is a time when everybody was in the minority, of course, and so you were up against the forces, so to speak. And she says she remembers this parade being led by Dame Alberta Isaacs of women down Bay Street, just a small parade. She was on a bicycle and these women marching behind her. And so that's how this struggle came about. Kermit Roll and his brother Clayton down in Rollville, Exuma, they told me that they became members of the PLP because their father sent them to Nassau. And when they got off the mail boat, they were told to go to see my grandaunt, who's Nora Hanna. You know, my great-grandfather owned a lot of land, which we still have an interest in on East Bay Street, which is next to what was then Kelly Bakery and the shopping center, just down the road from Milo Butler's place. And so they hightailed it to Nora at her shop. And she was the treasurer of the PLP, and one of the first things she did was enroll them in the PLP. And they ended up being lifelong PLPs and fighting for majority rule in Exuma. So, you know, we were all part of that milieu. And you know, Minky Isaacs, who's now chair, is also a cousin related. That's Dame Alberta's grandson. It's still about economic empowerment because that is what Lyndon Pindling said was the next phase of this. What is remarkable is the progress that has been made in that field. The government is the largest investor, owner, mobilizer of funds in the country. And it really surprised me as a minister of the government the extent to which people depend on government spending to drive the economy. And when the government contracts its spending, the economy contracts. So what has happened over the years is that many people have become well off because government spending has changed toward a new generation of people. And there are many, many examples of this. The most obvious example, of course, being Sir Franklin Wilson. And he has there's a compelling story. It's just remarkable. You know, Ross Corner still exists, and you know what housing is like in Ross Corner. And he tells the story. He was from a multiple child family, and he slept on the floor. He was the last child, and he slept on the floor. He said until his older sister got married, and then he was able to get a space in a bed. I don't think he has any problems finding beds today. I wish everybody well. I thank them for keeping the peace in the country and for all of us getting along despite the disagreements we may have over the politics and the development of the economy. But largely it's been a peaceful society, and that I really glory in the freedom which the younger people in this country have today. I was looking at how males dress today. I mean, impossible for me coming up in high school, even if I wanted to do that. But they're free to do that, and they're free to, and women are free to explore all avenues throughout the economy. In fact, they run the country largely, and that's been a great success. So I think you take some patting on the back, but you know, the poet says we have promises to keep and miles to go before we sleep.